All right, great, thanks. This is another training video, guys. We're going to go through, first I'm going to take you through some details on the technical side of switching and directing with the laptop and what that looks like on the multi-view monitor. And after that, Nathaniel's going to take you through more of the art of framing and getting nice images and cutting between different shots and the timing of shots and what you need to think about when you're directing, both for worship and for the message, that kind of thing. So we'll get right into it. We've already shown how to set up all of this stuff in other videos. Oh, also, if there's any questions you have about this, you can talk to Nathaniel myself. There'll be a link in the description for this video with walkthroughs and things like that. So getting straight into it, this is the control panel. So once we've opened up this application here, I'll just get out of the way so you can get a nice clean shot of that. The application's down the bottom, that little icon. Once that's open, you're going to...
on it again?
Yep, there it is, just down here.
Yeah.
Yep, once that's open, you're going to have this screen pop up. It's already connected to the ATEM switcher, so you'll be able to control everything. Nathaniel, if you can just get a shot of that multi-view.
This one here?
Yep, and I'll run through the whole thing.
Yeah, great.
Great. So we'll just move the fan out of the way. Here we have our preview monitor. I'll just get a shot up there so people can see. Let me just make this, is it cutting? Yes. There we go. All right. At the moment, and I'll change that shot as well. There we go. And what I need is camera 8. No, camera 6. I'm figuring it out myself. Thank you, Lord. Alrighty, there we go. We're good. All right, so just stay zoomed in on the screen. So we've got the preview monitor here, and that's going to show the shot that's going to be next up. It's the next shot to go live. Down here, yep, preview there, and you can see it's written in text there. All of the different camera shots are down here, camera 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Normally we have 4 cameras, so 1, 2, 3, and 4 will all be lit up with images from the cameras around the room. Just to recap once again, if you can show the camera, camera 1 goes up here, and that's going to give you a shot, an angled shot onto the stage. Camera 2 is the shot from over there by the sound desk, and that's going to give a shot directly on to Pastor Catherine or whoever's speaking. Camera 3 is over there up the front, and that's going to give us some nice audience shots, and also a nice...
Camera 4 should be around there.
Yep, and camera 4 is over there on the other side. That also gives us some nice audience shots, and also some nice shots of the... Yeah, praise God.
So he's not filming. You wanted you to know that he's not filming this one. That's why it's not as good.
Well, but it's okay. It's still going to be good. Thank you, Lord. It's still going to be good. Those are the 4 cameras that we normally use. Eventually, obviously, we'll get some more cameras and we'll have some more shots from that. But for the time being, that's what we have. So coming back to the control panel now, you can just get a nice shot. Yep, perfect. You can even come over this way a little more, man. There you go. And you can see that at the moment, we have camera 1 on preview. If as I push these buttons here, so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, the numbers there, those, as your left hand can rest on those numbers, that will change the preview shot. Oh, one more thing on this monitor, I forgot to mention, obviously, this image here is the program monitor. So that is the program screen, that is the live image that's going out to the audience at home. So whatever's there is actually live, and that's the important thing, because what's in preview, I can change that. I can just scroll through whatever I want in the preview monitor, over here, and you're going to see as I'm pushing those different buttons. Up here on the multi-view monitor, you can switch, have a look at the multi-view, Nathaniel. Yep, you can see the green is switching as I go through it, but the red is currently on the live image, which is up here. And so as I change the different numbers on the laptop, that's what's going to change over there. Now you can change whatever shot you like while it's in the preview, but you can't do that while it's live. So without any further ado, we'll get into the controls on this. You can come back over here. Now, one of the tricky things that often happens, there's a cut button here on the control panel. You want that unselected. You do not want that to be selected. If you either accidentally select it with the mouse, that's okay. It's cutting, oh no, it's cutting back and forth. Where is it? Yep, it's the control button. If you accidentally tap the control button, then this red button here, it's going to be selected as red. And instead, every time I push a 1, 2, or 3, 4, now, that will actually cut to different shots. So if I push the 2 button, it cuts there, 3, there, 1, there. And I don't want that. I want to be able to change between the different preview buttons. You could also see that we had Elmo in the shot there. I think it's nice that he came to join us today. I'll just deselect control now. And that means that every time I push this 1, 2, 3, 4, it's only changing the preview button on the multi-view, not the live image, which is what we want. So you often will accidentally, sometimes the switcher will accidentally push the control button by accident, and you'll know that you've done that by looking at that cut button there. It'll go red instead of being gray. If that ever happens, just push the control button one more time and it'll go back to normal and you'll be able to continue on as normal. So if you're finding that you're meant to just preview something and it's going live every time you push a button, that's probably what's happened. All right, in terms of the cutting, there's two different ways of doing it. You can either push the space bar and that's going to do a live cut. So I'm just going to cut between these two shots and you can see it's cut to the shot, it's just gone directly to it, and then I'm going to push it once more and we're back to this shot. Now if I push the enter button on the keyboard, that's going to do a dissolve or a mix. So I would say things like dissolving to camera 1. Or mixing to 1, or dissolving to 1. Normally I'd say mixing, honestly. And what that means, well, I'll go through that in just a little bit, but you can see the difference in the sense that it kind of fades in and out as opposed to just doing a straight cut. You can see that, you know, it's very different what the transition looks like. Now, in terms of actually directing, what I would do, let's say I'm directing the service, I would grab the headset like this, I'd flick it on, and that's actually getting some feedback, so I'm going to mute that. I'd flick it on, and I would make sure that this microphone here is very close to the mouth, as close as possible, so that it can pick up everything that I say. And normally on here, what we would have is we would have all selected and we would click unmute. So that's unmuted. But for now, so that I don't, yep, sorry?
Go again, I'm just getting closer.
Yep, so this button here, it's the mute button. I'm gonna mute that at the moment so I don't hear the feedback in the headphones, but normally you obviously want that unmuted so people can hear everything that you're saying. Now, as a director, people will be able to hear everything that you say while you're mixing. If the people on the, you know, obviously they'll run through this, Nathaniel and Stefan will run through this in greater detail, how to use the little intercom units. Is that okay? Yep. Yep. How to use the intercom units when they're running through the cameras. They'll do that a little bit later on. But effectively, when you're on an intercom, you need to push a button down in order to be listened to. When you're directing, everyone can hear everything you're saying. All right, so I've got the headset on and I might be directing now. So let's say we've started the broadcast, we're good to go. You can bring the camera back over here. What it's going to look like from my perspective, I'm going to be looking at that multi-view monitor over there and seeing the next shot that I want. And I'm going to click on, let's say, the 1, and I'm going to say standby camera 1. And I'm going to have to use 6 here because that's the shot that we're using the most to record this. But say standby 1, and then I'd say 1, you're live after I push the spacebar to cut to that camera. I'll say standby 6 because that's what I'm using
at
it.
the same time as you click it, you're live. So.
Yeah, I often say you're live after. So well, I'll run through why I do that, and I'll just say standby 6 and come back to 6. The reason yeah.
So the multi-view why you do that?
Yep,
oh,
no,
it's okay. It's fine.
Yep, it's all good. And that changes obviously the images on the multi-view and so on. The reason that I always say stand by you're live after I've cut to the shot is that the camera person on the other shot, on the previous shot, once he is no longer live, he has permission to move his camera around and find another shot. But if I ever say you're live too early, I say you're live before I've cut to the next shot, then the previous shot, that cameraman might be, oh, I'm not live anymore, I can move to the next shot, and you'll see it looks, yep. And the same thing applies with the dissolve. So I'm going to do the same thing now, but with the dissolve, I'll say you can bring the camera back over.
Hit enter? Or?
Yep, I'll push enter. And you can see it's dissolving in, and I would say standby, well, I'll just do it again. I'd say standby camera 1, mixing to 1, you're live. And when I say mixing to 1, what that means is I'm doing a dissolve. That lets the previous live shot, the person who was previously, the cameraman who was previously live, know, oh, I'd better not move the camera for an extra 1 or 2 seconds because they're mixing at the moment, and I don't want to start moving my camera too early, otherwise that extra movement's going to be picked up in the dissolve, in the fade. So yeah, fading, thanks mate. Coming back to, Nathaniel just helped me out there, to come back to an actual shot of me rather than a boring shot of the stage. So that's why I always say you're live after we've gone to that extra shot. But you use different terminology. The director will just be saying it over and over again. Standby 1, you're live. Standby 2, you're live. Standby 3, you're live. And that constant feedback is very helpful, very soothing for all the camera people. It lets them know the director's in control, he knows what's going on. And it also, is everything all right? Yep. And it also lets the, we'll just transition over for a second. Yep, all good.
I'll do it now.
Oh, okay.
No worries. We're just transitioning our cameraman as we speak. So just get that sorted. Let me know when you're good.
I'm good. So I
Just
think you
need the
had
headphone.
Overexposed thing.
We're just making a high quality image for you at home at the moment. Do you need the earpiece? All right, all good. So yeah, just hearing that constant feedback of standby 1, you're live, standby 2, you're live. For the camera people, they can't see this multi-view monitor over here. So it's actually kind of like, oh, you often as a camera person, you're like, well, who's live, or, am I up next, or all of that kind of stuff. Just hearing that constant feedback from the director is very soothing. It just allows the cameraman to have, peace about that and to know that everything's going well, the director's in control. So you'll just hear that as a constant stream while you're if you're a cameraman, while you're recording, and obviously as a director, you want to give that constant stream of feedback back to the camera people so they know what's going on. So standby 1, you're live, standby 2, mixing to 2, and so on. So just in terms of the controls on the keyboard, we've already covered most of them. You've got the numbers here up the top, which allow you to, you can zoom in on those numbers if you like, Stefan, that allow you 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's all the cameras that we use for each of the different cameras. Those allow you to select them as the preview button. The control button here, just stay on the keyboard there, Stefan. The control button here is what allows you to cut live, but we don't want to do that. So if you've ever found that that's happening, just deselect that. Spacebar is for direct cutting, and enter is for dissolving. One last thing on the control panel here, there is a fade to black option. So if you just zoom in on this, you can come over here, Stefan, and you'll be able to see, take your time, whatever's the...
You have to do it off the hip.
Yeah, you might have to do it off the hip there, Stefan. Oh no, that works fine. So there's a fade to black button right here, and that allows us to do a slow fade to black. So I'll set that, for example. I'm just going to change that now to 6 seconds, and I'm going to use the mouse cursor to click on this fade to black. You're going to see the image slowly, just stay there, that's fine. You're going to see the image slowly fade to black as that number goes down. Once it gets to 0, you'll have a completely black screen. Now the only way to get the image back is to click on that fade to black button a second time. You have to click on it a second time to get your image back. So you can try cutting and all this other stuff, but that's what you need to do. Once that's done, you're good to go. And we often use that fade to black as the way that we end the services and the broadcast at the very end. I'll just run through this because I didn't at the beginning. I probably should have. Here we have the program keys at the top, so you can see cam 1. Yep, that's fine. Yep, all good. You've got cam 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And you've also got a black key. Then down the bottom, we've got the preview buttons, cam 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I go to, you won't really be able to see it. I can change the preview buttons. I won't change the live ones because then you wouldn't be able to see because of the camera we're using. But if I just change the preview ones, you can see in that bottom row there that as I push those buttons, that's changing. If I push the space bar, then that is going to change on the top and bottom so that you get a different shot. You obviously can't see it now that I changed, but when I come back, it comes back to the keys. Shall we, say that again?
Should I shoot the preview screen?
Yeah, you still won't be able to see it because it'll, oh yeah, you can see, yeah. So it's going to transition, those two switches, they flip when you push the space bar or the enter key to transition between the screens. I think that's probably everything from that end. Obviously, here's one more thing. So whenever we record for Glory City TV, we're going to use this unit here. You need to have solid state drives, which are these discs here. They need to be inserted, there we go. They need to be inserted into the hyperdeck, and they obviously already have been. And you can see over here, that's the recording time. Now, if I push the record button on here, you're going to see on this little screen here, you can move over here, Stefan, so you'll be able to see. You'll see on this little screen here a few changes. So I'm just going to push record. And you can see here it started a new video. So the volume's working fine, the image is working fine. Up here in the top right corner, if you zoom in, you'll see that it's using disc 1, and later on it might use disc 2, but also we've got an enormous amount of recording time. We've got 881 minutes left to record at the moment. It also tells you the settings for recording and so on. So it tells you the length of the video that's currently recording and also the amount of time you've got left to record. And yes, you can see over here that it's pink on the one that's actually recording. That lets you know that this one's not being used. Yes, perfect. So you can see that that's the one the disc that it's recording onto at the moment. It's slot number 1. One final thing, on the intercom here, obviously the unit needs to be turned on. Once it is, you need to have all selected. When you want to speak to people, use the, make sure that's unselected, so the mute button's unselected as we pointed out, but also whenever you're taking the headset on or off, you just push the mute button, then you can take the headset off, and then when you want to put it back on, same thing, make sure it's muted, put it back on, and you're good to go. And the reason you do that is that it's not too loud at this end, but at the end for all the camera people, it's very crackly and very loud, putting the headset on and on. So you're just saving their ears a little bit by always muting it. Also, you can adjust your volume here if you need to, but that's quite obvious. Finally, these two inputs, your headset needs to be plugged into the one on the right. This is a headphone jack, but we don't really use that. 9 times out of 10, it'll already be plugged in here and you'll be good to go. I think that's pretty much everything. Oh, also we have a little light here. There's just an on button, on-off button. You can see there. Yep, and it turns it on, off, and you're good to go. All right, and I'll pass it over to Nathaniel, and we'll do the second half of the video.
Awesome. Just hang on a sec while we change the mic.
Yeah, you probably don't need that. You need this.
Yeah. We haven't done.
This is Esther.
Yeah, these are my
That's funny.
Esther and Melody over here are going to be our models, standing models. You girls can assume your places if you like in terms of on the. We're going to use them to show you guys how to do some cutting. Thanks so much, Roland.
Good on you, man. Awesome.
Bless you, bro.
Yep. See you guys soon.
We haven't done much editing with these videos because it saves time. So we're just, you know, if you need to fast forward through them on YouTube, then go for it to get past things. Basically what I'm going to show you now is just a few tips when cutting, and we do eventually want to train everybody to cut. Doesn't mean we're just going to throw you on and say cut, but there's a whole stack of skills. I'm not going to go into everything because there's so much when it comes to cutting. There's so much, it's massive. But I do want to kind of mention some of the basics. Now, important to note that the cutting we do here, we do want to get at a certain level of a professionality. Is that even a word, Stefan? Professionality? Let's just say it is a word. So we want to get to a certain level of that, mainly because of the fact that it's going to television. So the stuff when Catherine's preaching, that's going to television. So when you're on the team, just so you know, when Catherine's on, that means that we're really aiming to get at a television level. There might be some other services where we're a little bit more relaxed in the cutting, but we're aiming for a television style cutting like you might see in Joyce Meyer, you know, or Benny Hinn, but preaching, kind of that same pacing. And yeah, so we've got 4 cameras, as you've seen, and that's really important. So I'm just going to run through some simple tips for when you're cutting and if you're cutting, and we're going to continue to teach you when you're here. But this is just some simple things. So now here's what I've got. I'll just show you. Normally we've got 4 shots, but Stefan's on one of the cameras now, so I'm just going to show you with 3 shots. So right now, this is what our camera 1 is filming. You can see that. Now I'm just going to readjust that a touch because you'd want it probably to come out a touch more normally. About there, would you say, Stefan? Yep. And obviously, iris up and down, that's what we were talking about before, and Stefan will explain that a lot more in the video with the cameras. Now, this is what camera 2 looks like. You might see that when Catherine's preaching. And we've got Esther standing in for us doing the preaching. And we've got Melody here, and this is an audience shot. This is what camera 3 looks like. And so we've got Elmo here next to Melody. And so that's what a typical audience shot. Obviously, some are closer, some are further, and there aren't empty seats behind them often. We try to keep from getting empty seats. So also there is a camera 4 as well. I'll cut back to me so you can see me. So obviously camera 4 will be getting some wide shots, and we can vary those cameras too. Camera 3 might get a wide shot of the stage. It might get some close-ups. Camera 2, which I'll cut to it again. This is on a tripod. It's our best tripod because when Catherine's preaching, this shot, I have to say this, camera 2 is our most important shot. Now, right now, Esther, we could probably center that shot up a little bit more. See how Esther's not quite in the center of that shot? So that's okay, we haven't got an operator on it right now. However, if I was able to communicate with the operator, I would say center up your camera a little bit, operator 2, and they would center her up just a touch into the middle. You might not even notice if you're not used to looking at shots, but I can see pretty instantly whether it's center or not. That's not really center at the moment. But so this shot is your A game, most important shot. You need someone quite confident filming with camera 2. I'm going to cut back to me. You need someone quite confident filming camera 2, especially if Catherine's on. But obviously we all need to learn with it. So there's through the worship's a great way to learn on camera 2, because when someone's preaching, especially if they walk a lot, that's the best tripod, and you really need to be able to float with that preacher and really keep the movement smooth and follow them as they go. And that takes a bit of practice. That's really important with that. Now, camera 1, that's the shot, I've got it on screen right now, is also a really important shot because we will have someone panning on that shot, but that shot just gives us a sense of space, gives us another shot to cut to.
Esther.
It's a little bit wider.
Esther, do a bit of walking back and forth.
So yeah, if Esther was to walk back and forth, you'd be following like this.
Talking to the crowd.
And now what I'm going to do is, obviously camera 2 it hasn't got an operator right now, but so this would be an example of just tracking really smoothly, following her along. Great, thanks Esther. You can go back to the pulpit if you could. Thank you so much, you're amazing. So as you can see, this is what it would look like to be tracking with them. And camera 2 would be doing the same, but we don't have an operator on there at the moment. So that's camera 2, really important. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of an example of, actually what I'll do as well, I'll show you camera 3. It's an audience shot, camera 3, and also there's a lot of variants. You can do an audience shot, you can do wide shots. It gives us a lot of variation. The more of that we can have, the better. I even get camera 1 sometimes, if they're a pretty experienced camera person, to zoom all the way out. Obviously not while we don't get them to zoom while we're not live. And I really like to get the seats a little bit darker, and especially if the room's really full, I'll give it a little bit of a move like this. That shot's good to use every 5 minutes or so, just because it's, I'm going to zoom back in now. Stefan, good, oh great, thank you Stefan. So that's a bit of an example how I personally get a bit of variation every now and then, about every 5 minutes or so. I get a big room shot, a bit of a slow pan. And what that does is it just creates a little bit of dynamic. You can see the room. You want to continually create interest. So we don't want to just be on camera 2 the whole time without any interest, just simply staying on that shot, because it doesn't show us the room, doesn't show us the crowd reactions, and it doesn't really feel like television. We're used to see for things cutting quite quickly. So what I'm going to do now is, Stefan, anything I'm missing? I'm going to go into a bit of a cutting demo. Now, in terms of, well, let me give you a couple of examples of some important instructions that's Roland kind of covered, but I'm covering more the cinematic side of that. Now, Stefan, you might want to come around and just, I'll point this out. So we've got our screen here, say I'm cutting, and I can see this screen right here with Esther on it. And now for television, she hasn't got enough what you would call headroom. Would you agree with that, Stefan?
Yeah, it's a little bit tight.
Now, the headroom is how much space or room the top of her head has from the end of the frame. And see, right now, that would be okay for live stream, but for television, we really need to give her a little bit more headroom. So what I would say, probably maybe that her head was to come, see if she's got a ponytail as well, it needs to come lower, because it just works with television that way because of the cropping. So if I was talking to camera 2 operator right now, I would say, camera 2, can you give her a little bit more headroom? Not headspace, headroom. So
yeah, it would just tilt up.
And they would tilt with the camera to give her a little bit more headroom. Now that framing there is probably about what we're normally going for, would you say, Stefan?
Yeah.
That's the framing for camera 2. It looks good. I'll cut to it again just so you can remember that. You don't want it to be too wide. If you're starting to cut the shot straight on the waist too much, then if you zoom out too much, it's not flattering for the person. So that's what we're after for that shot. Camera 1, that's fairly what we're after. And camera 3. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you guys just a rough example of cutting through as if I was using a team to cut right now. Then I'm going to give you guys a few more tips as well. So Stefan, you might want to get a bit of a wider shot of me. So right now I've got the same thing that Roland was talking about. So yeah, so I'm going to do a live demo right now as if I was cutting a service, and I'll just give you guys a couple of tips with that. So Esther's going to be preaching. Now, obviously if Catherine's starting the message, I would start with a wider shot, something like 1. or I might get someone starting getting a more established shot, and then I'd work my way in. And this is how it would sound. So one's live, you'd say stand by camera 2, camera 2, you're live. Now this camera is our most important. We can sit on this for 15 to 25 seconds, especially if it's engaging what she's talking about. And so she might be talking there. And often what I'll try to do, shots like camera 3, see there's a reaction, I saw that, so I cut the camera 3. I didn't warn them, but I would normally.
Be engaging.
And then stand by 2, 2, you're live. So you got the audience reaction there and cutting back. Now when it comes to an audience shot, try to keep it 4 to 6 seconds, no longer than 6 seconds, no shorter than 3 seconds, unless someone kind of does a bit of a funny reaction, then try keep it, Another thing on that, here's a real important rule. Don't, say an audience member does something a little bit funny, try your best not to cut the shot, then cut away and panic straight away. Your best to, even if it's not the best, hold on to it for at least 2 to 3 seconds, then cut away, because otherwise it becomes very obvious that you made a mistake if you go cut. Obviously, if it's something really bad, then you got to do what you got to do. So, all right, here we go. And once again, I'm just going to give a couple of examples. So, let's just start with camera 2. So she's preaching, camera 2. I got her talking, and let's pretend I can hear her right now. I'm actually listening for little gaps within her talking to cut, and I might say she's walking. Cut to camera 1 for 2, 3, 4, and back to 2. So all the other shots are just to give it a little bit of space. And so I'll cut back and forth to something else for 4 to 6 seconds. And then I would generally cut back to the person. So I would be them, their main shot, camera 2, which I'm going to cut again. Camera 2, you got camera 2 there, got on that shot, and I can sit on that shot for quite a bit of time, 15 to 20 seconds, 25 seconds. And then I want to show you what a cluster looks like, where I'll actually use a few shots. So I'll go stand by 3, 3, you're live. Stand by 1, 1, you're live. Stand by 2, 2, you're live. So what I did then was a little bit of a cluster. I probably did a little bit fast, but it's a cluster of 2 shots. Now, you're going to have more variation if you've got someone on camera 4, especially especially in a situation where you might have, say, like a big team on, or Catherine preaching, then you can really do that. So you have a bit more time. Now, I'm not going to go too much into too much more stuff, because it's all, you pick it up as you go. What I will say is, when you're communicating with the teams on here, it's really important. You'll have this one on, not the other one I had. You'll have this on, and really important to be clear with your instructions. Make sure the mic's close, and encourage people if they're doing a good job. Talk to your team. If someone gets a great shot on camera 3, hey, that was a great shot, man. I really like that. Also, feel free to talk to them when lining up your shots. Now, there's some things called the rule of thirds. There's a couple of other little rules that I'm going to very briefly cover, but I might even try to send you guys out some links of videos that go into this in much more detail. Basically, when you're looking at a shot, if you were to break a screen like this up into thirds like that, see that? So I've got these 2 fingers. So if you come across like that and like that, you got your thirds. Now, that's very important, the top third. See how her eyes are sitting roughly around there if you were to split the screen up like that? That's really important. Now she's preaching, so I've got her in the center of the screen. That's important because she can look in both directions. When let's say someone like camera 3, what I've done here is now obviously there's no camera operation, so it's not perfect, but I've got her set up here so that she's still on the line of thirds and she's closer to the other lines here. A bit closer, not perfect. But that rule of thirds, it's also called, actually probably better than line of thirds, rule of thirds it's called. We'll send you some links. That's a really important rule. There's some other little rules that I'm not really going to go into now, but the framing we already spoke about earlier, so you guys understand that. I think we're good. That's most of the stuff. We'll talk about this in person as well. And obviously packing up is fairly simple. It's just reverse of what you did when you set up. Just make sure you turn everything off, and so that'd be great.
Hi again. This is a follow-on video from what Nathaniel was talking about. Just want to explain some more things about cutting. Just with worship, sort of get into the space of feeling when to cut and listen to the music. And And also, when it's a decision about do I cut or do I mix, that is also something. Just feel the atmosphere in the room. Just feel, what is that? A slow song? Feels like a mix. So can you see this, Nathaniel? So I've got a shot, camera 2 shot on the wide stage and a 3 shot on the drums, and it might be just a slow song. So I feel it feels like a dissolve, and we just dissolve to the next shot, and it's still a slow song, and all of a sudden it's picking up. The rhythm is picking up. It's cut. It's boom, boom, boom. Definitely. It's cut. And somebody cut. Well, you're always cutting to the beat, but not every beat. So just listen to the beat that you're looking for, and cut. Just go with the flow and rhythm. So these are a few notes that I wrote down and we forgot to talk about. So timing. How long do you stay on a shot? Well, what do you want to see as a viewer? You know, if you've got a great shot on camera 3 of 3 musos, and it's just wonderful, don't cut away. Stay on it.
Never. Just never.
Stay on it until you feel there's a need to cut. So because sometimes people cut too much.
Yeah. And you're not just cutting between shots.
It's about knowing when not to cut, because things might be engaging and want to hold on to that. You could probably cut this bit out. Think about it as a viewer. What do I want to see? What do I want to watch? Well, be a director as you're a viewer of the thing, and say, I want to see this. I want to stay on that shot. And the last thing I'll say is the same principle applies not just to worship, but the preaching or anything you would be vision mixing, in terms of feeling the rhythm of the message. You know, if Catherine is being engaging, you want to be on camera 2. You know, and if she's really being engaging for whatever length of time, stay on it. Break it up. You can break it up. If you were going to break it up, something engaging, because she's being more expressive, I would only cut to camera 1 to see the full body. Especially when they become expressive or move. There's lots of movement. Cut to camera 1, then come back to 2. Oh yes. When Catherine is doing a Bible scripture, if you can stay on camera 2, and the reason for that is in editing we put Bible scripture underneath. And it just simplifies it unclutters the shot. Stay on camera 2 for the Bible scriptures if you can. As I say, the rhythm and all that, it's not just a music thing. It can be anything. And that's all. And over and out.